So you have driven so many successful AI-driven automation projects, which is not common in the market. Well done on that, first of all. When it comes to digital labor solutions, how do you turn all of that conversation? How do you go beyond the conversation and make it reality to help the employees?
Yeah, it's a great question. We could probably spend the rest of the session talking about that. Let me give you a little context, and then I can try to answer the broader question around how you go from conversation, ideation, and a bit of hype and enthusiasm to actual impact for your customers. Well, let me use a NatWest example. So there's 2 digital labor examples that I can share. Might be interesting for all of you in the audience. The first one is an enterprise AI-enabled solution that we implemented for all of our colleagues across NatWest. And that was in partnership with IBM Watson. And that looked to really help all of our colleagues sort of do their best work in that provided help and support and exceptional colleague support across any technology query, any HR query, any procurement query. Your printer, default goes away. What do? You ask Archie. So the service was called Ask Archie. We rolled it out, and it's now the de facto go-to place for colleagues to get help and support. And actually, we found by doing that, people could then put the focus into their day-to-day work and not have to worry so much about these other queries that they needed help with. The other example, which also was in partnership with IBM Watson, it's quite a different example, but I still think it speaks to the digital labor question, and that was around an AI application we implemented across our mortgages business. So you can imagine mortgages are complex, it's a lengthy process, you have changing pricing, changing regulation, there's a lot happening, it's a dynamic environment. And for us, when I was at NatWest, it was really important that we gave our staff in the mortgage and processing centers, all the support they needed to be and do their best work. So we implemented sort of I would term it a similar thing to a co-pilot solution for the staff in the processing center to help them with any queries they needed as part of a process re-engineering exercise. So those are 2 really interesting examples. Happy to talk more about them after in the networking at the end. I think also, Ebru, back to your question around how you go from the conversation through to impact. I think in my experience, I focus on 3 things, kind of 3 C's is what I call them. So one is making sure you have the right commitment and sponsorship within the organization. At NatWest, we were fortunate we had it kind of top down from the CEO. I think secondly, there's questions around capability and how you skill, reskill, upskill, partner for skills. And then the third one I would say, and it was mentioned in the earlier panel, is around that change model and that blueprint for change, particularly on the cultural side. How do you create a culture that embraces AI technologies in the enterprise?
Great examples. In fact, it is really impressive to hear about the 2 areas, how you empower the employees and also how you improve the customer care with the second project. But we know that you have created an AI family at NatWest. There are more projects.
There are more projects. There are a few more projects. Those are just 2 siblings. There are other instances, but I guess if you think about the concept of a family, if you think of it maybe more as an architecture, Ebru, of solutions. So as well as enabling the kind of digital labor workforce and the colleagues, we also focused on our external customer base, and we offered we tried, and the goal was to offer exceptional kind of customer service and support to all of our retail customers and commercial customers, and we did that over time. We started small. It was a multi-year journey, but I think today the service is serving around 1.5 million conversations every month, supporting our customers. And over time, I think what was really fun and interesting and also challenging was layering in the automated tasks and the automated processing into those conversations.
Impressive, but also very innovative. So while driving this innovation, how do you create trust with the customers? The reason why I want to ask this now is you heard in the previous panel, right? Everyone talks about trust and responsible AI. So today it is crystal clear that there's a huge hype around AI, around generative AI.
Yes.
I had to use that word. And what we observe in the market is that when companies are willing to start the AI projects, the biggest showstopper or the first question mark is in their mind around governance and bias and ethics. How did you handle that?
Yes, carefully. No, it's a great question, Ebru. I think when you're thinking about trust, it's multifaceted, and naturally as a financial services organization, people trust us with their money, so it's paramount when we're thinking about introducing any new application or new technology. I think we've and myself approached it from a couple of different angles. One was that we developed it in close consultation with our own user group and our own colleagues, so that added an element of trust in what we were building, and we focused a lot on how we designed that interaction layer, which is now, I think, been superseded a little bit by generative AI and ChatGPT, but actually building trust all the way down through the application stack, so data security, we talked about it earlier, I think, in the previous panel, explainability is big in financial services, and the ethics and the bias, we would do that ourselves, but we also partnered with people like IBM to help us with that.
Yes, and I think the principles that IBM's AI is structured on, such as fairness, robustness, privacy, played a key role while you were delivering those projects.
Yeah, exactly. They're almost design principles, if you like, for any AI project in the enterprise.
Yes, the main milestones also. One last question then, as our time really allows us to have a little bit more chat on this.
Okay.
What excites you most about the future of AI?
That's a very hard question. What excites me the most? I think actually, if I think about what excites me the most, it's actually the opportunity that is in front of us right now. I think the nice thing about what we're seeing in the market and with the sophistication of the technology is it's not something we have to wait for kind of a 5-year cycle in the future. It's actually here, it's present, we can interact with it, we can shape it, we can get involved in decision making as leaders. And to me, that's a lot of responsibility, but also a real opportunity. And I would think all of you would think in a similar fashion. I read a report a couple of days ago that just came out, was looking at research around performance of employees when they augment their work with AI-enabled solutions. And the statistics, I think, are pretty significant. And I think this is part of the reason I'm really excited. So they looked at people who used AI in the workplace. The stats around productivity were double-digit improvement. The stats around the amount of work and the completion of the tasks with double-digit improvement. But most interestingly, the quality of the work produced was also significantly improved. And so I think that is really a call to action for all of us today to lean in and think about how we want to embrace this now as opposed to in the future.